Working on an outbreak investigation, it's important to shift from the mindset of a routine inspector to an outbreak investigator so you can understand how and why the outbreak occurred. This video reviews the importance of identifying practices and factors that contribute to the outbreak. Finding these contributing factors helps you recommend the right control measures. Let's review how outbreaks occur. When a foodborne illness outbreak is suspected, the responsible jurisdiction must determine where in the farm-to-fork continuum the problem occurred. This continuum includes harvesting, manufacturing, distribution, and points of final service, such as a restaurant or someone's home. The responsible jurisdiction will also investigate the factors that led to the outbreak. These are known as contributing factors. The underlying root causes of these factors are known as environmental antecedents. This video will focus on identifying contributing factors. Investigators from 3 scientific disciplines are essential to the investigation: epidemiology, laboratory science, and environmental health. These 3 disciplines collect critical information on the components of the disease triangle. This information helps the investigators understand the outbreak, identify practices that contributed to the outbreak, and recommend actions to control it. Let's take a closer look at each discipline. Epidemiologists collect data about the host of the foodborne illness. They answer the questions, who got sick, and when did they get sick? Epidemiological data is used to form a hypothesis on the suspected pathogen or other agent. The data also help identify implicated food items that helps guide the investigation. Laboratory scientists collect data about the agent that is causing the foodborne illness. They answer the question, what agent got people sick? Environmental health specialists collect data on the environment that allowed the agent to infect the host. This information helps answer the questions, how did the foodborne agent infect the host? What factors led to that happening? And why did those factors occur? Environmental health specialists use epidemiologic and laboratory data to guide the environmental assessment. Identifying the factors that lead to outbreaks and their underlying causes requires a different approach and mindset than performing a routine inspection. An environmental assessment is a systematic process that focuses on specific foods, processes, and people. Food safety violations might be identified during the environmental assessment that are not associated with the outbreak. Environmental health specialists must distinguish these general violations from actual conditions that led to the outbreak. While violations not associated with the outbreak are important, the immediate goal of an environmental assessment is to identify the specific contributing factors and their underlying root causes. Let's take a closer look at these contributing factors. What exactly are they? Contributing factors are the factors and practices that led to the outbreak. They fall into 3 categories: contamination, proliferation, and survival factors. These 3 categories refer to the type of food safety failures that most likely occurred before the outbreak. Keep in mind, you might identify more than one contributing factor during the investigation. The first type of contributing factor, contamination, is when pathogens or other agents get into food. They can come from many sources including people, pests, and the environment. Contamination can occur at any point along the farm-to-fork continuum. One example is when a raw animal product, such as raw chicken, cross-contaminates ready-to-eat food, such as salad. Another example of a contamination factor is when a sick food worker handles food with their bare, contaminated hands. Let's look at the second major category of contributing factors, proliferation. Proliferation is when pathogens are growing in the food. Food that is held, cooled, reheated, or prepared at the wrong temperatures for a long time can allow harmful bacteria to grow. For example, a stock pot of chili is improperly cooled and held in the temperature danger zone for hours, allowing Clostridium perfringens to proliferate. Another example of a proliferation contributing factor is when sliced deli meat is held in a refrigerator for months, allowing Listeria monocytogenes to proliferate. Our third contributing factor category is survival. Survival is when pathogens survive a process meant to kill or reduce them. Survival contributing factors apply to foods that require cooking, such as raw beef, pork, and poultry, to ensure possible pathogens are eliminated or reduced to safe levels. One example of a survival factor is when a hamburger is not cooked to a hot enough temperature, allowing E. coli to survive the cooking process. Another example is sashimi, or raw wild salmon, not being frozen long enough or at the right temperature to ensure parasites are destroyed. To identify these contributing factors, the environmental health specialist's role changes from that of a regulator and inspector to one of a detective seeking to solve a mystery. Like a detective, the environmental health specialist gathers clues and uses them to determine how and why the outbreak happened. Remember, outbreak investigations differ from routine inspections. The environmental assessment piece of the outbreak investigation looks at the big picture to identify what led to a breakdown in food safety, while routine inspections focus more on violations. And while the environmental assessment focuses on food safety issues that may have occurred in the past, an inspection is a snapshot of current food safety practices and conditions. Identifying contributing factors should be based on information gathered during the environmental assessment, not the results of routine inspections. Most of these assessments require multiple site visits as more information is made available about the suspected agent and implicated food items. Let's look at some common activities in the environmental assessment piece of the outbreak investigation. Investigators visit the location to see how food is prepared and review food flows for implicated food. Observations should concentrate on the specific processes or practices that could have contributed to the contamination, survival, or proliferation of the suspected agent. As part of the environmental assessment, investigators also interview managers and food workers. Since it's not possible to observe what actually happened in the past, the goal of interviewing is to piece together the events that occurred at the time of the exposure and develop insights into the factors that led to a foodborne illness outbreak, and also the root causes. Investigators often review or collect records to understand what happened in the past. Records can include invoices, employee sick logs, employee schedules, recipes, and customer information for case finding. Investigators take samples of the environment or implicated food to be tested for pathogens or other agents, as they still could be present and available to test. For every identified contributing factor, the environmental specialist must try to understand why the contributing factor occurred. These root causes are directly related to the conditions in the food establishment, the people, equipment, food, processes, and economics. Once the contributing factors are identified, it's important to use this information to recommend and implement effective, sustainable control measures. Control measures are actions or activities that are taken to prevent, eliminate, or reduce the occurrence of an identified hazard. Control measures can be short-term and immediately implemented, such as discarding potentially contaminated food. Other control measures may be long-term, such as requiring training or changing a preparation procedure. Both short and long-term control measures are critical for stopping an outbreak and preventing it from happening again at a specific location. Implementing appropriate control measures requires accurately identifying both contributing factors and their underlying root causes. We hope you have gained an understanding of some basic information about contributing factors, what they are, how they are identified, and how they can be used to develop effective control measures. For more food safety resources for environmental health practitioners, go to cdc.gov/nceh/ehs/food.